Good evening, everybody. I have 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call this special meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7 p.m., though I don't see the mayor. But I did talk to him. I just wrapped up a call about an hour ago with him, so I know he's joining. So we'll give him a couple minutes. In the meantime, Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice for tonight's special meeting?
Yes, May 4th, 2021. 2, members of the Honorable Municipal Council from Paul Heroux, Mayor. Municipal councilors, by authority of Article 3, Section 3-5B of the Attleboro Home Rule Charter, I hereby call a special meeting of the Municipal Council as follows. Date, Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. Time, 7 p.m. Place, remote link via Zoom. And our purpose is the presentation of the fiscal year 2021 general government budget and fiscal year 2021 water and wastewater enterprise budgets and any other matter that may legally come before your honorable body. Sincerely, Paul Heroux, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Withers, would you also take a roll call attendance, please?
Yes, I will. Please indicate here if you're here. Mr. Blair.
Yeah.
Ms. DeSimone.
Here.
Mr. Conti.
Present.
Mr. Waterman.
Present.
Vice President Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Delisio.
Here.
Mr. Kobus.
Here.
Ms. Dolan.
Here.
Ms. Reynolds.
Here.
Ms. Holmes.
Present.
President Cooper.
Here.
Everyone is here, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. So again, tonight, the mayor and Jeremy are here to present the budget for general government and for the enterprise funds to the council. I believe all of you also received it via email, and I also believe that there's copies in your mailboxes at City Hall. After the mayor presents for the budget presentation to us, we will then go, we'll adjourn this special meeting and go into our committee meetings with Public Works Committee first, only because the mayor is here this evening, and Council Jackson invited the mayor to talk through the Reed Street sidewalks, and then we will go to Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee and work from there. Any questions about this evening at this point? All right, Mayor, welcome. Thank you for joining this evening.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
Mr. President of City Council, thank you for having me. First, I want to give credit where credit's due. Jeremy Stoll, our budget director, he's been with us for just over a year, probably a year and a week at this point, a year and 2 weeks. And he did an outstanding job pulling this budget together. He had a lot of help from Deb Gould, and he spent a lot of time with the different department heads, tweaking the budget. And we, as I'll talk about in this budget message, we started off in a pretty ugly situation, and we were probably about $3.7 million off of where we wanted to be, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But fortunately, revenues have, even as recent as the last couple of days, come in a little bit better than we anticipated. And so some of the things that I wanted to do that I didn't think we could do, we can do. So I'm going to start, and I'll read this budget message. It's just about just under 4.5 pages. So, but dear President Cooper and municipal councilors, I'm submitting this annual budget for the city of Attleboro for fiscal year 2022. This year, my top 2 budget priorities are the same as they are every year. Number 1, no layoffs in any city department, and to maintain city services. And as a side note to that, while the United States lost 50 million jobs last year because of the pandemic, I'm very happy to report that we didn't lose any jobs in city government because of the pandemic. So very happy about that. First, let me start by saying that while this budget is balanced, there is no city department that is adequately funded, staffed, or equipped. Cuts to any department only hurt that department. My job has been to create a budget where no department is given favorable treatment over another, and in doing so, to ensure that the services provided by the city are closest to what the citizens want. All city departments and all employees are of value to the citizens that they serve. We'll talk about the budget process first. The process of doing the budget this year was generally the same as in years past. Based on feedback over the last year, I articulated budget priorities to the budget director, Jeremy Stoll. The budget director then created a preliminary budget and calculated anticipated revenue. Next, the departments submitted requested amounts, and based on the revenues, that left us with a potential deficit, as it does every year. We had several meetings with the school finance director, Mark Furtado, and agreed on a number that if the school department can operate with, the city will agree to that budget number. The second phase was where I went through with the different departments, requested budgets with the department heads, and we made cuts where in order cuts were made in order to reduce the deficit. The budget director and I met with the different city department heads, and we made cuts to their requested budgets. Not all departments needed to be cut from, as they were already presented in a lean budget. Others were optimistic that some projects long overdue could be funded. We have a budgeted 3% COLA, $1.7 million deficit on the city side and a $2 million deficit on the school side. As you know, this means that the minimum requested expenditures from the departments were greater than the city's anticipated revenues by $3.7 million. The governor's budget funded education about $2 million less than we would need, because the governor's budget assumes that students being kept home due to COVID-19 should not be accounted for. I disagree. As expected, and expected, 199 Attleboro students are not enrolling in our school district because of COVID-19. This results in an approximately $2 million less coming to the city for education funding. However, 199 students spread across 9 schools does not reduce the operating expenses of those 9 schools, and as such, we are left with a $2 million deficit. Various cost-saving measures were applied to reduce this deficit, including the use of free cash and basically $1,179,633 in ESSER2 money given to us from the federal government as part of their stimulus spending. We'll be able to talk later about, or in another day, what that, $1.1 million in ESSER money, what that is and how we're using that, what exactly that means. So postponed needs. Every budget's goals always need to be realistic and achievable. However, due to the less than needed funding from the state, goals need to be modest. Some goals even need to be postponed until we can afford them. For example, I wanted to create a trash and recycling division within the health department. We cannot afford to do that right now. I wanted to fund the capital improvements line with $500,000 on the current year levy. We can't afford to do that right now without free cash. I wanted to keep 15 firefighters on staff and not go back to the 14 that were doing service calls when I started as mayor. We cannot afford to do that right now either. I also wanted to avoid using free cash to balance the budget. We have to use free cash to balance the budget, something that is not sustainable and something that I hope will change in the FY23 budget. The two things that are driving the use of free cash in the FY22 budget are the capital line and the snow deficit's use of free cash. So having said that, there are some highlights of this budget that include, first of all, we're funding to meet all of our annual debt obligations. That is one of the most important things that we do with the budget. Funding for the school department with a city record of $2.5 million above net school spending. This includes growing the special ed stabilization fund an additional $300,000, which will bring us to $700,000 of the $1 million goal that I would like to have for that fund. And when we meet that $1 million goal, that's when we are no longer going to be putting money into that special ed stabilization fund, and that the money that we have been using to pay for that special ed or to build that special ed stabilization fund, we can start using that for other purposes. Using free cash, this budget seeks to fund the capital improvements line with $500,000, something Councillor Conti would be very happy to hear. This budget pays for the $631,000 snow deficit, and that's without using free cash. This is continuing the funding for a second set of turnout gear for firefighters. For the first time in the city's history, every firefighter has 2 sets of turnout gear. This is also continuing our annual OPEB contribution, but it's $100,000 as opposed to $50,000. When I started as mayor, we were contributing $35,000. So now this year, with your vote, it will be $100,000. And to put this into perspective, why this is important, our unfunded liability is about $300 million. This is something that's really good news. This next one is funding the police department with $180,000. And that is up from $50,000 last year. So this money, divert from just reading this, but what we're doing now with this is by budgeting $180,000, we can afford to pay for police cruisers without bonding for them, which is a lot faster. We don't need to go through the bonding process, and we also don't need to pay the interest on those bonds to pay for these police cruisers. So the police chief just told me today that he's already planning on buying 3 hybrid police cruisers with this $180,000. And the nice thing about buying 3 hybrid police cruisers is that when the useful life of those has expired with the police department at probably around 80, 90, 100,000 miles, maybe 120 if we're lucky, they can then be handed down to other city departments as required, being part of the state's green community program. So also this budget is creating a traffic unit within the police department. The biggest complaint I get is about trash and recycling issues. There always has been since I've been mayor. Previous mayor was the same situation. But the second biggest complaint I get is about traffic and speeding issues. And the police chief wants to create a traffic unit within the police department, and I support that. And this budget basically reflects that. A traffic unit would basically be police officers dedicated and tasked with enforcing traffic rules. Because right now, with the police officers we have patrolling the city, they're frequently responding to calls for domestic violence or calls for shoplifting or whatever it might be. They're emergency calls, an accident, or some type of other, like emergency call. So for the police to set up a traffic detail that could do some type of operations to nab speeders where they're frequently going, this is a necessary unit, and I'd like to expand that next year if funding permits. This is something that we just added back to the budget within the last day or two. I mean, this was something that we almost couldn't afford, but with the new revenues coming in and Jeremy constantly looking at things, and checking in with Deb and making sure everything, works out. This is something we just put back into the budget in the last day or two. Also, this is of merit. There is no increases to the health insurance rates for active employees, and for retirees, the MedX rate will not be known until around November, and the effective date will be January 1st, 2022. So we budgeted a 6% increase just to be on the conservative side to cover for that. It might not be 6%, but that will cover anything up to 6%. Also in this budget is funding for the 53rd week, so we don't need to do a transfer from free cash to pay for that 53rd week for salaries at a later date. That's the budget. I'm going to talk about just other expenses that we have, because we have things that are coming up, and we've been planning for these things using free cash. So I want to talk about these for a moment. There are expected one-time expenses that can be paid for using free cash. That is set aside so that an impact on the budget or a sudden impact on free cash itself is not felt. These include, but are not limited to, while it's not in the budget, excuse me, is that the right place? Yes, it's yeah, I'm in the right place. Okay. It's worth noting that using free cash reserves, I'm continuing to set aside $100,000 a year for the next 4 years to pay for over $400,000. It's about $400,000 to $450,000 in fire department self-contained breathing apparatus. That this is something OSHA is going to require us updating within the next 2 to 3 years. So what I'm doing here is basically every year, well, let me take a step back. About a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, the fire chief told me that a couple of years from now, basically about 4 or 5 years from when he said this to me, he's going to need to purchase about $450,000 worth of this self-contained breathing apparatus. And so he told me that 4 or 5 years in advance. And so what I've done is every year I just put a hold on $100,000 in free cash, and we just roll that over and it gets recertified every October. And I grow that by $100,000 a year. So that way, when the fire chief comes to the city and says, we need to buy this stuff, we'll have saved up for it. And then it won't drain our free cash reserves. We'll have set it aside appropriately. Also, while not in the budget, it's worth noting that we set aside $450,000 in free cash to pay for the leaking roofs at 2 of the firehouses. Also not in the budget, it's worth noting that we're using free cash reserves that are added to using the interest on the bonds for the new high school project. I'm setting aside money on that. So I'm going to stop reading from this and just explain it. So what this is we take out a bond for the high school to pay for some of the ongoing expenses. And while we have that money, it's in an account and it's gaining interest. And we're talking, we're spending about $8 million a month on the high school, to give you the magnitude, the volume of how much we are sitting on. And that $8 million is gaining interest. Or actually not 8 million, it's in the tens of millions of dollars. That's gaining interest. That interest gets rolled over into free cash. I then take that and we're setting that aside to pay for 2 specific things. $700,000 worth of asbestos removal and $500,000 to move the CTE equipment over from the current high school to the new high school. And this is something that the city auditor, Deb Gould, has said we shouldn't just let it roll over in free cash. We should actually put it in the city stabilization fund, which is what we did last year with your vote. And we're going to continue to do that. So the interest on those bonds goes to free cash, but then we send it to the stabilization. So once again, when that bill comes at us at $1.2 million, we will have saved up for it by setting money aside, and it won't really hurt our operating budget, and it won't be depleting the free cash we need to pay for emergency expenses. Also, while not in the budget, I'm going to roll over the free cash certification to pay for the traffic lights that is necessary at the intersection of Rathman Willow Drive. So for example, this year we had about $8 million in free cash certified. A lot of that, not the majority, but a lot of it came from the previous year, because I stopped spending because of COVID and I wanted to sit on the money so we could balance the budget if we need it, so we didn't have any layoffs. So right now we have a little over $3 million, maybe $3.5 million in free cash. I've set aside $1 million of this. I put a hold on that, and that money can then be used to pay for the traffic lights at the intersection of Rathman Road and Thatcher Street. The traffic lights, we expect are going to be about $700,000, but we want to have a little bit of a contingency in there to do other improvements at that intersection. But the nice thing about this is we don't have to worry about securing a state grant, although we'll still try. But let's just say we don't get a state grant. We don't have to worry about bonding for it and going through that process, then paying for it over the course of time. We have that money set aside, so once we need it, it's there and we don't have to worry about it. Lastly, while not in the budget, it's worth noting that I will be requesting to use about $500,000 in free cash available in FY21 to pay for a gunshot detection system for the 9 schools. I've talked with some of you about this gunshot detection system. So what this is we're setting aside, we are getting the host fee agreement from Nova Farms. And that host fee agreement came to us in several $100,000 this year, about $583,000 approximately. I can't think of anything better to do with marijuana money than spend it on school safety. So a lot of people are concerned about what the impact of the marijuana industry in Attleboro is going to be. And so what I wanted to do is spend this, what some people will call drug money, what's called drug money, spend it on school safety. So a gunshot detection system is basically the same thing as a fire alarm system, functionally, not functionally, but conceptually. When a fire goes off, it alerts, when a fire starts, it alerts the fire alarms, and then instantly the fire department knows about that. What a gunshot detection system would do is it would read the listen to the acoustics, it would detect the acoustics of a gunshot and also the flash from the gun, and instantly alert the police department that a gunshot is going off. So the technology, the program that we're looking at, the funder, is something that is used at the Pentagon. It's used at the White House. It was something the police chief was involved with from A to Z, and this is something that would, as it instantly alerts the police to a potential shooter or an active shooter, it would get police to the schools a lot faster than if we didn't have this, because from we would know from other school shootings is that the first sometimes 5 to 10 minutes, people don't even know that there's a school shooting. They're not sure what that is. That firecrackers, is a book, drop, was a door slammed. They don't even hear it on another side of the school. So the gunshot detection system would instantly alert the police, getting the police there within minutes, saving lives. The sad reality is that school shootings are more common than school fires. And that's why I think this is just as important as a fire alarm system in our schools. Hopefully we never have to use it. So the money that we're getting from the host fee agreement, which is a one-time money, we get it once a year, every year for the first 3 years. We don't, it's not a recurring source of money. So we can use it for one-time expenses like something like this. So you'll see a request coming to you soon about that, but we are in the planning stages of that. The debt policy. This is basically what I rolled over from last year's budget message, and I'll sum it up in just a couple sentences rather than read the next few paragraphs. If we're going to use something over the course of time, we should pay for it over the course of time. That way we don't create a shock to our budget. And that way, if multiple years of people are going to use it, multiple years of people can pay for it. And we do stuff like that with the high school, with the library. So there's different things that we would, like I said, use over the course of time, we pay for them over the course of time. So looking ahead, in conclusion, as I noted, no department is fully funded, staffed, or equipped. Distributing limited resources to competing demands is always the principal challenge of any budget. This budget is no different. The FY21 budget assumed that local aid in Chapter 70 would remain consistent with the governor's January budget, and that's January of 2020 budget submission. That did not happen, and we needed to use free cash to balance the budget. As you know, we were left with a $2 million structural deficit, and that actually lingers into FY22. However, the revenues have come through a little bit better than we thought. And like I said, we just discovered this in literally the last few days. New growth should be used to pay for new projects and expanding city services. However, due to the structural deficit causing a 0% COLA in FY21 for city employees, new growth from the marijuana industry was used to fund a COLA for employees in FY22. I did not come to this decision lightly. Various factors were considered, such as equity to all city employees, regardless of classification, status, or union, what the city can afford, and what will minimize hits to employee morale, and what the city is likely to be compelled to do in the light of the new marijuana revenues. Employee salary increases, when step increases are combined with COLAs, have been outpacing the growth of the city's revenues. This is by definition not sustainable. This is why I have not always agreed to do what unions ask for, and why, out of the competing needs of the city and the city's limited resources I have to work with, I'm investing in an economic development in the city to help with the increase the city's tax base. So with that, that's the conclusion of my budget message. I went off on a couple of tangents. Hopefully they were useful in providing a little bit more of the background. But I think you'll find that this budget is, first of all, it's balanced, and it has just a couple of new things in it, but we're making a few very important investments, like into OPEB, the Special Ed Stabilization Fund, fully funding the police cruisers, so we don't need to take debt out for those every year because it's something predictable. There's a number of very good things in this, and one of the things I'm very happy that we were able to squeeze in the last day or two is the traffic unit for the police department. So that's the conclusion of my message.
Thank you, Mayor. So we can move on to the enterprise funds. And just to remind everybody, the mayor will come back to the public hearing. And at that time, generally present any changes to his message. Things might have changed, things go up or down. And then, can answer any clarifying questions for the council. But so with that, Mayor, you can move on to the enterprise funds presentation. And give me a minute so I can open it on my computer.
So I'm not going to read the entire message, word for word for the water or wastewater. I will, largely the message is talking about the different, very expensive capital projects that we have going on. But I will note something though. This budget with the water department right now, this budget is seeking a rate increase of 4 cents to $5.10. It's less than that 4 cents is less than a 1% increase. It's 0.79% increase, less than 1%. This reduces the need to use retained earnings. And this is a controversial subject, the fact that we have retained earnings, but I think everybody on the council knows that without retained earnings, so we would be in trouble. So for the benefit of the public that may be listening, the importance of retained earnings is to have a cash available in case of a water main break, for whether it's water department or wastewater department. Sometimes these water main breaks can be quite expensive, and if we need to quickly or sometimes it's a part within the water department itself or within the wastewater department. If we need to pay for that really quickly, but we have to go through the council and the city treasurer and bond council and get a bond authorization to pay for something that could be in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, the water would have to either be turned off or would continue to leak in wastewater, which is then costly. So for the benefit of the public, that's why we need to have these retained earnings. It's basically almost like a free cash, as we call it on the city side of things. It's used for emergency purchases and expenses. On the wastewater side, there is no need for a rate increase. So, but the water department and wastewater department both have a number of capital projects that I, received a description from both superintendents, Tom and Courtney, and those are all part of the budget message. But I don't think I need to drone on about those different projects because they're not always the most exciting subjects to talk about, but they're critically important.
Thank you, Mayor. I would agree. Again, we all got this via email today, and there are hard copies in your box to review it. And again, the plan will be for the mayor and Jeremy to come back. I haven't had a chance to circle back with Councilor Delicio on what that schedule looks like, but we'll publish it and make sure everybody knows what it is. And if we need to have a special meeting on a Tuesday just to make things align like we've had to do in previous years, we'll do that. Unless there's any general questions for the mayor, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
President Cooper?
Yes.
Excuse me. There was a mayor's communication today.
Oh, well.
Did you get it? Did you get it?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't.
Well, I got it. I shut up my work computer at 4:35. I turned it back on tonight when I was at home at 6:15, and there was a mayor's communication there.
So Steve,
It's all related. It's all related to the budget.
So why don't you did you send it to me?
Did I know?
Mayor, let me see. Kathy usually does. Let me just check.
I thought you were on it, Mark. That's why I didn't send it.
But I was.
Let me President Cooper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my email right now.
I have it.
You do have it. Okay, good.
I do,
I
yeah.
was going to send it to you. Didn't have it.
I have it. Let me just.
I don't.
Every item pertains to the budget.
Yeah, that's good.
So you know what we'll do? I will send this to myself.
President Cooper and Vice President Jackson, I just forwarded it to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll give it a minute. I'll share it on my screen and we don't need to read all these, Steve. I don't think they're all going to the budget. They're all pretty
Everything.
standard
Yep.
annual submissions. The numbers change, but the process doesn't. So we can, as soon as that comes through my email.
Now, Mr. President,
Yes,
were you going to call a public hearing on the budget, or are you going to do that next week?
not yet. That the
Okay.
budget committee can do that.
Okay.
President Cooper, if I may, I would like to make some short remarks on
Sure.
the budget, just into a couple of
Absolutely.
things. Thank you. So last year's budget message asked for citywide and departmental missions, directions, accomplishments, and the like. And I think the mayor's message and the overall spending decisions that are within the budget satisfy the broad ask from the council. But what you'll see in this year's budget is that there are departmental descriptions ahead of each individual department, which include their fiscal 21 accomplishments, their fiscal 22 objectives, and then any proposed changes from the prior budget year. So it calls your attention to what, if anything, we're doing differently in the budget. The administration was also in line with the municipal council's budget message to add to how to deal with FY21 state budget cuts. And the prior budget message also included the municipal council's priority of growing stabilization. So I'm pleased to report that this current budget includes a $300,000 contribution to stabilization. I won't go through the revenues too much, but we have 900,000 in new growth here, which I think is a really healthy number, but I think still somewhat conservative. So I'll be happy to come back in the fall and talk about a supplemental appropriation with certified new growth, but $900,000 is a really good number. We have 14.4 million in local receipts, which includes two pretty large numbers, which you haven't seen before. There's $800,000 in the host community agreement, which the mayor talked about before, about using towards the shot detection system in schools currently. That $580,000 he talked about was from when the distributor opened up at the end of March, was then forced to close through May, and then opened up in June through December. So that's about 7 months worth of revenue. So in 2022, we budgeted 12 months worth of a conservative approach to revenue of $800,000. That is mirrored by the exact amount in a line called Reserve for Cannabis Impact Fee in the citywide account of $800,000. So once we receive our actual impact fee, we'll be able to spend that on one-time capital improvements before the certification of free cash. But having that line in the budget of $800,000 makes sure that this revenue source, which only lasts 5 years, is not washed into salaries or other recurring expenses. Because that's 3% of gross sales, and the local option sales tax is also 3% of sales. That is the $800,000 of local option sales tax is also budgeted, but that is a recurring revenue source ad infinitum. So that's a general fund receipt that we use for balancing the budget. If you recall, meals tax in fiscal 21 was a concern for us. We had cut our expectation essentially in half from where we thought it was going to be. But I'm pleased to report that meals tax has performed exceedingly well, almost on a normal year level budget. People are doing takeout and in-person dining to levels that we didn't initially expect. So our projection for FY22 is kind of back to normal, and that's some of the last few days maneuvering the mayor's been talking about as we get in new state aid. The House Ways and Means budget on state aid was a little bit kinder to locals than the governor's budget, but still not where we quite needed to be. If you look at our net state aid, so state aid less state and county assessments from fiscal 20 to fiscal 22, it has only increased $363,000, which is less than 0.9%. So for a third of our budget level funded for 3 years is a matter of going concern. As the mayor spoke about Chapter 70 with 199 students being absent from the census, that dropped our Chapter 70 anticipated award by more than $2 million. To that end, we're using $1.179 million in ESSER 2 funding, which is a federal funding source, to fund the increase in that 1179 equates to the increase between our fiscal 21 and fiscal 22 required minimal local contribution. So that money is not in this budget. I have a few footnotes referencing it here, but our actual general fund contribution to the education budget does not include that 1.19, but on an accounting level, we will be able to convert that from essentially from a restricted federal funding source to a less restricted net school spending funding source. I don't really like this. It's a one-time revenue we're using to balance the school's ongoing budget. But the way we as an administration view this situation is that it is a one-time drop in revenue / enrollment, and we're using a one-time revenue to plug that gap. And we're anticipating that those 199 students that were absent from our census and for the fiscal 22 calculation will come back for the fiscal 23 contribution. Of note, 100 of those 199 students were kindergartners that we expected based upon demographics that just didn't show up. So it was a number of families saying, I'm not going to start my kid in school this year. We're going to wait. So we expect majority, if not all, plus some back in fiscal 23. I'm not going to go through too much of the expenditure side. The mayor highlighted a number of those things, like the increase in OPEB, the increase in the special education stabilization, which I wholeheartedly support, and our $500,000 line for capital, in addition to the police cruisers. And when we talk about changes in fire staffing, what that means is that we're staffing to 15, and that when the 15th person calls out, we don't refill that 15, and that cuts our overtime cost by roughly $150,000, which you'll see reflected in the fire department's budget. So we're not changing the base staffing level. It's just when we have one person call out, we're not filling all the way back to 15, but if we have 2 people call out, we will fill up to 14. And so to balance this budget with including that $500,000 in one-time capital expenditures, we use about $834,000 in free cash to balance, which is a combination of the one-time capital and a portion of the snow deficit at $630,000. So I'm proud of this document that we put together. We couldn't have pulled it off without Mayor Haru's goal setting and guidance, without department head cooperation, and without some astute observations and help from City Auditor Deb Gould. So I look forward to our coming discussions, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Jeremy.
President Cooper, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah. So one of the things that Jeremy gave a lot of detail about, but to summarize it, is that the state aid has been less than we hoped for, both with local aid and with school aid. As Jeremy mentioned, we've been basically level funded the last several years from the state with respect to local aid. Fortunately, the revenues within the city have been doing a lot better. We have the, like I said before, the marijuana sales tax that's come in. Meals tax has done better than we thought. So there have been, there's been some relief at the local level. Without that relief at the local level, we wouldn't be able to do a new traffic unit. We wouldn't be able to, pay for 3 new cruisers in the budget. So locally, it seems like we're doing better than what the state has done. So that's kind of just to summarize what Jeremy had just said.
Thank you.
With that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jeremy. At this time, we'll go on to the reading of the mayor's communication. Mayor, I understand you're hanging around, so bear with us for a few minutes. And Jeremy, I think you're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all.
May 11, 2021. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit to your honorable body the City of Attleboro's general government annual budget for fiscal year 2022. And that's one of the budget
Budget
hereby request
Appropriations Committee.
Am I muted?
No,
No.
I can hear you.
Okay.
This was coming in and out. Steve, I'm just going to go through
Okay.
these and assign them unless anybody objects, because they'll all be read in committee multiple times. So again, item number 1, Budget and Appropriations Committee. Item number 2, Budget and Appropriations Committee. Item number 3, Budget and Appropriations Committee. And Jay, I love these revolving funds, so if we could have the balances when we have the discussion. So we don't get sideswiped by that, or you don't get sideswiped with my questions. Number 4, Budget and Appropriations Committee. Number 5 is also Budget and Appropriations Committee. 6 is the water and wastewater enterprise budgets to Budget and Appropriations Committee. Item number 7, Budget and Appropriations Committee. 8, Budget and Appropriations Committee. 9, Budget and Appropriations Committee. 10, Budget and Appropriations Committee, and 11 is the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Any questions on the mayor's communication from this evening?
Mm-mm.
No, sir.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing. And now at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delizio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We are adjourned. And
Right. Have a good night.
thank you, Steve.
Thank
Yep.
you, Steve.
Yeah, see everyone next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mark, Mr. President, can I ask you one question before you get
Yes.
started?
Yes, sir.
I couldn't find a motion tonight for the service revolvers being traded in. It was assigned to my committee last week. I know Virginia was out today. Maybe it was just an oversight. Could I?
No, it might,
Council
think-
Cooper,
I think it went to a different, yes,
It-
Councilor. It went to a
it's in
different.
mine.
committee.
The Glocks, the 3
Yeah.
Glocks,
Yeah,
They're in mine.
Property and claims.
Yeah.
they're in mine.
As long as they get read in, I didn't know how important it was for him.
Yeah. No worries.
No worry. Okay, Sarah.
All right, Councilor Jackson, you are up.
Thank you, President Cooper. I'd like to call the Public Works Committee to order at 7:42. Do I have a second?
Second. No, I can't.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. So yes, I do have the mayor here present this evening. I've asked him to come before us because we do have before the Public Works Committee appropriation of $28,000 to do a survey of Reed Street. And you all know Reed Street pretty well. It's pretty long. And it's an appropriation to actually put sidewalks in. I've had a few calls, going to be land taking, how much sidewalk needs to be done, how much it's going to cost, and why did they pick Reed Street? Why didn't they do, I don't know if anybody else, any other councils have gotten it from their wards, but, like Slater Street, which that would be a gazillion land takings. I know that. Wilmot Street, Steer Street was just being done, but that would be a lot of land takings as well. But people have asked, and so I just kind of want to make it really clear, like how Reed Street has gotten chosen and, concerned about how much it would actually cost to do the whole, this is just for a survey to see, but to find out how much it would cost to actually put sidewalks in over there. So Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I've been trying to put sidewalks in streets that we're repaving on a regular basis. We can't always do it, but Reed Street is going to be, the water main is going to be replaced from County Street to West Street, and that's going to start at the end of June. That's something that was being paid for by the water department. It's a water department project. That project, to rip up the water mains from on Reed Street from West Street to County Street. That's basically from the fire station all the way down to South Attleboro Fire Station all the way down to County Street. Because it's one of the worst streets in the city in terms of the water main breaks. There's a couple other streets that are pretty bad. Right now, Steer Street is being done over. It's the same situation. The street that I get more requests for sidewalks on than any other street in the city has been Reed Street. And so what I reasoned was, while we are ripping up Reed Street to put down the new water main and then repave it, before we put that final top coat down of asphalt, let's put down sidewalks. It's almost 2 miles long, and We do have the debt capacity for it. It's something we could bond for, and it would affect basically about 338 homes in Attleboro. And the reason I know 338, I just sent out a letter to every person that lives on Reed Street or one of the streets off of Reed Street. And I'm just talking about the portion of Reed Street between County and West Street. So there are 338 homes off there, and people would benefit from this in that they would have a safe place to walk and, just after work, or teach their kids how to ride a bicycle. It's a safety issue for people. It's also, in the interest of, their own property, because then they don't have to deal with damage to their property with snow plows or water erosion. So what I'm asking for tonight is $28,000 just to do the survey. We just did a survey of May Street, and it's the same process. The survey basically determines what's city property and what's private property. With May Street, there isn't going to be any taking of private property. There was enough space on May Street. And in fact, if you drive over to May Street right now, between Newport Ave and Washington, you could actually see where the orange stakes are on the north side of the street. So there's not going to be any land taking. There's only going to be one house, and that's 499 Newport Ave. That's the corner of May Street and Newport Ave. And they're actually going to donate to the city a small corner of their property. So that way we can also go down May Street and then wrap it around onto Newport Ave, connecting May Street with the Connolly Field, which is the recreation department field just right across from Newport Ave. So, that's, May. The reason I'm talking about May Street is that there's not any land taking. As it turns out, a lot of places throughout the city, there are the streets aren't even in the right place. That we've seen this a number of times. And when we do a survey, then we find out that we actually have to move the street over a little bit. We had to do that in South Attleboro recently. But with going back to Reed Street, though, this $28,000 would do the survey to find out what's private property, what's public property. Then that would inform us as to whether or not it's even doable, whether or not, and of course, we believe it is going to be doable, but we know exactly where the property lines are, because then we could determine where the sidewalk would be. So I've already talked with DPW about this. They would actually want to put it on the same side of the street as the fire department. And that would go from the fire department all the way down almost to the end of Reed Street. We would stop, just shy of the end of it because there are no homes down on that end. But the overall cost, if we were to bond for it, would be about $1 million. And, so that's something, we have the debt capacity for it. We haven't been, we've been retiring a lot of debt. And a lot of the projects that we spend our money on are things that people really can't enjoy, and so, a number of years ago, we bought Highland Park. And so that was something that people could enjoy. We did that. And that was actually a financial investment. The city's better off financially having purchased that. This is, normally when we pay for debt on something, it's not something that the citizen can actually use themselves. It might be like a fire truck, which would cost, like a fire engine would cost $600,000, or a rescue, which will cost about $450,000. We bond for those things. And this is something that people would actually be able to use, and it would offer safety in that neighborhood. Now, some might say, well, how is this fair? How is it fair that we would take out debt to pay for a sidewalk on one street in the city? We do it all the time. We do it all the time. I mean, for example, when we get Chapter 90 money, that's tax dollars, just like this bond would ultimately be. That's tax dollars that comes to us from the state. And that money is used for one specific road or one specific sidewalk. And this is just, it's the same situation. We're using tax dollars to pay for one specific sidewalk on one street. And just for the record, we would not be putting sidewalks on both sides of the street. There are so many streets in the city that don't have sidewalks that it's not really appropriate to put sidewalks on both sides of the street that doesn't have one. We just did this on Mendon Road recently. if you haven't taken a drive down Mendon Road, I would really encourage you to do that, because Mendon now has a sidewalk on one side of the street. It's a brand new sidewalk from Brown to Washington, allowing people to actually get out and enjoy their neighborhood. We use Chapter 90 money for that. So that's what I'm seeking to do. And the timing of this is basically, like I said before, we're ripping up the road right now anyway. And the time to put a sidewalk down is before we put that final top coat down. And Reed Street is the street that I get more requests for sidewalks than in fact, all other streets in the city combined. I mean, I get that many people are living on or right off of Reed Street. It's incredible how many people are requesting sidewalks on there. So this is the time to do it. And, if, the survey is just the first step in this, in this process. And so I hope you support it. It would make a lot of people really happy. It's something we can afford using existing debt capacity. It's something that will improve public safety. It will improve the quality of life for those 338 homes. And, I'm using Chapter 90 money. I'm putting sidewalks all over the city anyway, in different places everywhere. And as we just got guidance from the federal government to what we're going to do with that $10 million of ARPA money. And so now that we have the guidance, I'm going to be creating a budget, and we'll be spending that money in all different places all over the city. So, again, if people say, well, why should people over on this side of town pay something on that side of the town? It happens all the time anyway. We do it Chapter 90, we do it with everything. So I'm happy to take any questions, or hopefully that answers.
Yeah, I'm going to be the first I'll address all those. So first of all, I'm just going to use this, like, holy cannoli, $1 million on one sidewalk. That blows my mind, honestly. And it really blows my mind. It's one little neighborhood, one sidewalk, $1 million, and it's not Chapter 90 funding. That was the number one thing. But we have an opportunity to charge a betterment fee. Do you plan on doing that with this? I mean, just like we do when we put in sewerage, if we're gonna better the neighborhood, then the taxpayer, helps us better the neighborhood by having a sidewalk put in. We are able to offer, or we are able to apply a betterment fee. Is that an intention or not?
No, the reason is because the taxpayers would already be paying for this. We don't charge a betterment fee for anything else we do with Chapter 90 money. And so it would be, if the folks on May Street, for example, or Mendon Road, or Dean Street this summer, they're getting new sidewalks. It's coming out of Chapter 90, which is still their tax dollars. In this case, the sidewalk, and this isn't, I respectfully disagree with you. It's not one little neighborhood. This is almost 2 miles of sidewalk, affecting one of the longer streets in the city. So it would affect 338 homes, potentially up to 338 homes. But it's, no, I mean, I don't see the need, or I don't see it being fair to charge a betterment for this use of tax dollars when other people are using, we're using tax dollars to put sidewalks on their side, on the street sidewalks, and they didn't get a betterment. We don't really have much of at least in my 3 years and 5 months as mayor, we don't have a practice of charging a betterment, because this year we're doing something in this neighborhood, next year we'll do something in that neighborhood, and the following year it's constantly moving around the city. I don't think that would be fair in this case.
And we don't have a sidewalk plan, correct?
We don't have the sidewalks are basically like streets. What we do is we repair the streets that need to be repaired, that are in the work, and several factors go into that. And one of them is the amount of use the street gets, the condition of the street, the utilities under the street. There's a lot of variables that go into that. And so the sidewalk plan that I've been working with is when we can put a sidewalk alongside a street that, we'll do that. So I'll use Mendon Road, for example, again. Mendon Road, and actually use Dean Street as well. Mendon Road needed to be repaved. And I got a lot of requests from people wanting to see a sidewalk on Mendon Road. So we put a sidewalk on, we started in 2019, we did half the sidewalk, and then we did the other half, and I mean one side, not both sides of the street. People can only walk on one side of the street at once. So we did one side of the sidewalk, then we continued on that same side. And then this summer, we're gonna finally pave the road. So the sidewalk plan follows, you know, or it works with the street plan, but not always, you know, so, you know, it's largely driven by, you know, it depends on the street. You know, May Street is, you know, I'd like to put a sidewalk on there. We're actually planning on doing that this summer, because there's a lot of foot traffic over on May Street. The shops at Mayfair have got a lot of traffic, and you know, there's people that live on May Street that walk off of May Street, walk to the shops, walk to Stop and Shop. But May Street's a tiny little street, at least that little portion of it is. So it depends on the street and the need, but it is need driven, and it also try and do it with the streets. Bushy Street was another one. We repaired the sidewalk on one side of the street on Bushy Street.
Well, that would make sense because you're over near the school system.
Yeah.
But so just speaking as a ward counselor,
Mhm.
because it's going on right now, Steer Street over here in Ward 4, mess, a
Yeah.
hot mess. Like even right now, just what they've done to it is a hot mess. So, you know, since they just did, the water department did the whole thing, replaced everything. Why was it's a shorter road,
Why didn't I put sidewalk
and
on?
there's still a lot of walkers over there, and we have a lot of development coming over here. So why couldn't that have been, that would not cost you, well, I don't know if it would cost you $1 million. I don't know about land taking.
No, it goes back to what I said earlier, and that is the first thing I said about this. No other street has, I haven't gotten requests for sidewalks on any other street, even all of the streets combined, like I did Reed Street, and that's why I'm starting with Reed Street.
You're
Quite
gonna get a
honestly,
lot of calls starting tomorrow, I bet.
I haven't gotten any calls about Reed Street getting sidewalks on Reed Street. Honestly, I don't think I've gotten a single call of anybody asking me to put sidewalks on Reed Street. I'm sorry, Steer Street. So, yeah, I haven't gotten any, nobody's contacted me saying, can I have sidewalks on Steer Street? And I've knocked on doors on Steer Street too. And that's just, you know, people have different priorities in different areas of the town. And also it's likely that I'm getting so much, you know, attention on Reed Street because the neighbors are actually working together saying, you know, getting to, you know, they're friendly, they talk to each other, walking around, you know, cutting the grass or whatever, and they say, contact the mayor, encourage them to put a sidewalk on Reed Street. So I've been, you know, over the last several years, I've gotten that, but that has not been the case with Steer Street. With Steer Street, though, the condition of the water main in Steer Street was horrendous, and we all know that. And there was a lot of water main breaks. I just sent out every resident, and I think I sent you a copy of that letter.
You did.
Yeah. So I sent out to every resident of Steer Street, basically a timeline of what to expect going forward on Steer Street. And we've also done that with Reed Street, and we're doing that with Dean Street. And you know, just to let people know what to expect, you know, because you know, the Steer Street project, it's taking as long as we thought it would, and it's you know, it's being done properly. You know, it's a water department project, but Mike Tyler, the DPW superintendent, he knows what he's doing. He sets the standards, and he makes sure that the water department is following those standards. And you know, in fact, I recently required that the water department, the contractor, and DPW have a conversation every other week, just to make sure that they're all on the same page, because I want to make sure that and the same thing will happen with Reed Street, if that's clear.
So, Mr. Mayor, just so we're clear, after this meeting this evening, I am going to let all of my constituents know that the more people that call you that want a sidewalk on their street, keep calling, get together with your neighbors and call, because that's how it's going to happen.
Maybe.
Project, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for people. The more complaints you get on the street, the faster it's going to happen. That's what I just got from our conversation. I'm not.
No. You're missing an important part, though. The Steer Street project has already started, and it's actually, you know, it's.
No, but I'm just saying any street. Any street.
Any street, yeah, going forward, any other street, that's absolutely right. Steer Street is probably too late, though, to put a sidewalk on, because the amount of time it would take to turn it around at this
Oh,
point.
I understand that.
Yeah,
I
but for
get
other
it.
streets, and actually, let me give you a hypothetical, though. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the ARPA money, the federal money, came in, and we could use ARPA money, that $10 million that we're going to get. If we could use that for sidewalks, I don't know if we could or couldn't. I would love to put a sidewalk the entire 2.5 mile length of Pike Ave, the entire 2.5 mile. That would affect hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes, much more than Reed Street. That's 2.5 miles versus Reed Street's 2 miles. Pike Ave, in the years to come, will probably need to be repaved. So the time to put a sidewalk in is before we do the paving, because if we do the paving and then put the sidewalk, you're going to be left with a crease, like a crack, a seam all the way down for about this much between where the sidewalk is and the asphalt is, because they have to dig it and then repave it with asphalt. So the time to do a sidewalk and to plan for a sidewalk is when you're planning to do the street itself. And that's why I say Steer Street is too late. But you're absolutely right, though, going forward for other streets, if we look at, how many people are weighing in on the issue. Are we going to do that street? Are we going to repave that street in the near future? If a lot of people want that sidewalk on that street and it's going to be repaved in the future and we can afford it, why not? Why not do it? That's the best time to do it.
Pike Ave would be $1 billion because you'd have to do a lot of land taking. So I just never see that happening in the future. Sir. I just don't. But
yeah,
I don't.
The land takings, people throw that around very loosely, but it's very rare, because on average, the city owns about 6 feet into the properties, like what people think is their property. It's on average, it's about 6 feet. If you were to go over to May Street right now and look at some of the orange stakes, the wooden stakes, you'll see some of them go into people's yards 11 feet. So people have been cutting the grass on that, for 11 feet, but that's not actually theirs. If you were to go right outside, I'm pointing outside my window right now, and you were to look at the grass where I cut my grass and where it looks like it's my yard, it's actually the first several feet. I think it's about first like 4 or 5 feet. It's not actually my property. It's city property. So a lot of people think it's their yard, but it's actually not. It's actually city property all along.
I understand that. Does anybody have any questions for the mayor? Please, Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. Mayor, thanks for coming. I live in Ward 4, so some of this is a selfish motivation. I appreciate what you're saying, that the time to install a sidewalk is when the street is otherwise having work done. But I've driven down Reed Street quite often. I just, I don't know. I don't necessarily see the need. I appreciate the desire by the residents. I don't see a need to install a 2-mile long sidewalk that leads on each end to roads that do not have sidewalks. I was always of the mindset that sidewalks should be installed more likely where people are going to and from a destination, i.e. Finberg, and put a sidewalk on Bishop. And maybe you're thinking about that. I just can't wrap around my head about your choice. And let me just say 2 more things. I appreciate the Pike Avenue. As someone who's on Pike often, that would be awesome. And the May Street issue, I appreciate the sidewalk there, but I'm viewing that more as a traffic control measure, which is why I think that's a great idea, because it will help slow down the traffic that crosses May Street. So that has kind of a double benefit there versus the one on Reed Street, which would serve seemingly primarily only the people on Reed Street. I'm not quite sure it would benefit anybody else going to or from anywhere else in the area.
The Reed Street sidewalk is actually going to be connected to Newport Ave on one side of it. So it connects all of ideally you want to have sidewalks, connecting every part of the city to another part of the city. So it actually is connecting down there, and, there is a lot of development going on County Street. And so eventually it would be connected, but it's interesting that you said that you were sympathetic to the residents on Pike, but not so much on Reed Street, when they're actually exactly the same situation. That either it's a residential area, there isn't really any businesses down on either one of them. You've got hundreds and hundreds of homes. Actually, on Reed Street, you have there is a connection from Reed Street to through some neighborhoods that goes to Hill Roberts. So that but if you look at the structure of those two streets, Reed Street and Pike, they're both residential neighborhoods that are not going to any businesses. But I would, as far as the need for it goes, and your comment was, I live just off of Pike Ave, so I see the need for it. If you lived right off of Reed Street, you would see the need for it. And if you were to talk to the people on Reed Street, like I said before, or the people that live just off of those side streets off of Reed Street, they're going to say, yeah, we'd love to have a sidewalk. Some of them are going to say, no, we don't want to have a sidewalk. Don't spend my tax dollars on that. You're going to get that with anything, though. But as far as May Street goes, May Street it's a safety issue. You have people walking on May Street, and I'm thinking of two in particular women, and I'm not saying let's put a sidewalk up for two women on May Street, but both of them walk their dogs, and they both are in kind of a perilous situation walking with their dogs along the side of May Street, and they both walk down to Newport Ave. But sidewalks are a safety issue for anyone anywhere in the city. But the time the reason I'm pushing for the sidewalk right now on Reed Street is because of the demand and the timing, and we can afford it. We have the debt capacity. I've had the people contact me, and we're redoing Reed Street right now. So now is the time to do it. I would love to see sidewalks on every street everywhere in the city. The time to do that is when we're repairing them, if we can afford it and if there's a demand for it. If the people of the street say, yeah, we don't want a sidewalk here, oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's all right.
Thank you. President Cooper.
Thank you. So I think what we're talking about here is spending the money to understand the opportunity for sidewalks on Reed Street.
Yeah, this is exactly.
Nobody committed. And being the Ward 2 counselor, I do hear a lot of complaints. In fact, Reed Street was one of the places, besides the tower, besides on the end of Snell Street, Beagle Club Road, when the Beagle Club was still there, and Reed Street were the top three places that George Ross took me when I won the Ward 2 counselor seat, the things that he wanted to see happen. The calls that I get are safety related, speed, nowhere to wait for the bus for all these new subdivisions. While I think $1 million to put it in is a lot of money, and we have to consider that at the time when we know it, we need to understand if it's possible. We can sit here all night and talk about Pike and Wilmarth and this and that. And if you brought 28,000 or 30,000 to look at the opportunity for sidewalks on either one of those Bishop Street, I don't care what it is, I'd probably support that to understand the opportunity. We can sit here and if a biff or what a butter all night long about whether there's land takings or not, or this or that. We don't know the answer to that. Look at May Street. I had a woman call me and say that the pole is 11 feet from the edge of the street in my yard. You're coming 11 feet in? And the mayor sent her an email and responded to her. So there's a lot of moving parts with it. And I think that the other question that I have, Mayor, is we oftentimes recently in the city, when we've had large subdivisions, when the planning board has granted a waiver for sidewalks, they've required the developer to put the total amount for sidewalks on both sides of the road into an account. And I'd like to understand the balance in that account and what projects have been funded from that account for sidewalks in the city. So those are my two, one, just a overall comment on the project. And then the second thing is the follow-up on that. That came to me as Kate was talking about development in the city.
So there was actually two things I wanted to mention. The stake that's 11 feet into somebody's yard, that's actually marking what is city property and what's private property. So the people often think it's theirs, but it's not. And we're not going in 11 feet. Even if it is city property, we don't want to build a sidewalk that's 11 feet wide. There's no need for that, and then we have to maintain it, and that's expensive. So that doesn't even make any sense. We will only build a sidewalk that's about 5.5 feet wide. So anything after that basically it's still city property technically, but the people get to continue and enjoy it as if it's their own. As you said something else before that I wanted to comment on, but I can't remember what it was. But the fund for the sidewalk, so there is a sidewalk fund that developers pay into. That goes into I think it's around in magnitude like $150,000, maybe give or take a little bit. And Mike Tyler basically uses that interchangeably with Chapter 90 money. So that is we actually have several sources to fund sidewalks. We can sometimes use CDBG money, depends on the project, and we probably will be using some CDBG money on a street just off of Park Street. Oh, Bishop Street. That was the one that you mentioned, Bishop. I'm going to talk about that in a second, and sidewalks and repaving that. So there's a street that, so CDBG is one source of money. The sidewalk fund is another. Chapter 90 is another. Actually, free cash is another one if we ever do that, but I've never done that. And then you have bonding. That's another one. So there's 5 different ways to pay for sidewalks. With respect to Bishop Street, really good one to mention. Bishop Street is in horrible condition. And Bishop Street is also, it's in horrible condition because it has a lot of water main breaks. So Bishop Street is in Ward 4, and that's one of the streets that's coming up to, that the water department is going to rip up, dig a trench all the way down, replace the water main all the way down, repack it, let it settle. It's got to have a freeze-thaw cycle. That way it doesn't, crack after we put a fresh coat down. But the time to do a sidewalk is, and a sidewalk along the length of Bishop Street would be about $450,000. And that would go from Pike to Park. So the nice thing about a sidewalk on Bishop Street is that it connects a lot of neighborhoods together. It makes for a safe place for people to walk, safe place for kids to stand out on the side of the road, which is a great point that I forgot to mention, Mark, but you mentioned it. But it connects a lot of neighborhoods to Finberg Field, to Bliss Dairy. And that the plan is to put a sidewalk on Bishop Street when we are planning to do the repaving. Why are we not doing Bishop just yet? There's we triage. There's a hierarchy of the worst condition streets, the most streets that need it the most, and Bishop's up there. But we're not going to do anything to Bishop Street until the Attleboro landfill is capped, because we have about 5,000 heavy trucks going over that. Well, they're supposed to start last year, that are going to be driving down Park Street and onto Bishop Street and then onto Peckham Street. We don't want to put a brand new street down only to have 5,000 heavy trucks beat that street up. So, but the plan is to also put a sidewalk on Bishop. So that's Ward 4. So again, there's different ways to pay for these things. 5 different ways we can pay for sidewalks. The one I'm looking.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. We don't have to go into Bishop Street right now.
Okay.
Some more questions coming in, but thank you. I'm well aware of what's going on in Bishop Street, and thank you for updating my other colleagues. But yes, I know we do have to wait for that landfill to be capped, and it will be paved first, it'll be paved after. And yeah, we'll save a lot of money actually having that road redone. Councilor Blair, you had a question?
No, just a comment to the mayor, please. Mr. Mayor, in my tenure on the council, the sidewalk plan has been always associated with the schools and the walking school kids. If you take some time out of your day and ride around the east side, where I was born and brought up, and still consider myself an east sider, the sidewalks in that area aren't even connected in places, and kids walk to school there.
Yeah. So yeah. So
let me finish, Mayor, please. That was always a priority with sidewalks, was in connection with schools. I know past administrations, that's what they've done. If I had $1 million to spend and I thought I could afford it, I'd be fixing some of these roads in town. They're terrible. I mean, they're like landmines. The potholes, I rode with my wife today. She was driving and I felt like a co-pilot. Watch that one, watch this one, don't hit that pothole, right? She almost threw me out, but I'm a keeper at this point. So if I had $1 million to spend or more, and I don't think you can put a price on it without this survey to know what you gotta do in land takings. But at this point, I myself don't think it's right to be spending money on sidewalks on the outskirts of town. The way it should be done is you work from a nucleus and work your way out. There's plenty of neighborhoods in Attleboro that need either sidewalk repairs or they need sidewalks. I don't think it's a good use of the city money, and I won't go any further, man.
So no,
Thank
you
you,
actually,
Councilor Blair.
yeah, you actually raised a really good point about the schools, because around Thatcher School, we are going to be using CDBG money to fix up sidewalks in that area. That's part of our plan, and so that's it's on Orange Street, for example, that's one of them. As far as the potholes go, you patch up the potholes. Okay, that's the you definitely do that. And when a street gets to a certain point, that's when you have to replace the street. What I'm trying to do is pair the putting new sidewalks down when we're replacing a street curb to curb. So we continue to fill the potholes in. And that's necessary. I mean, that's a safety issue too, because people swerve, they crash into other things, and it's damaging the cars. Absolutely. But what I'm trying to do is, like I said, put a sidewalk in where it's where it'll benefit people. That doesn't take away from, just because that's one goal, that doesn't take away from that we still do sidewalks around schools. For example, on Robinson Ave, which is right next to Coelho, it's just up the street from Coelho. If you were to go, if Coelho's on your right-hand side, and you're going up Brown Street, and you take a right onto Robinson, you can go all the way down. There's a sidewalk on one side of the road. But if you take a left, there's not a sidewalk on that side of the road. So what I am going to be doing, in fact, I just wrote the letter today, we are going to be putting a sidewalk going down the left side of Robinson, not like the left side of the street, but like when you go up Brown and take a left onto Robinson with Coelho to your back. So that actually speaks to your point about having these schools be in mind, because we have Mendon, we have Robinson, Brown, all these will be connected around Coelho with schools. We just put the sidewalk on Bushy Street, which is right next to, we repaired the sidewalk on Bushy Street, which is right next to the high school. So that those are not competing goals. What you said is actually still going on. What I'm doing is I'm adding another layer, an additional, not to replace the past practice, but this is in addition to replacing the streets. When we replace the streets, we also add a sidewalk.
Thank you. Councilor Delicio?
Can I please finish my comment, Kate? Only take a second. Mayor, I understand your thoughts. I'm just telling you my thoughts and how I think it should be done. Priority should be a walking path for kids going to school. And you said Peter Thatcher around Thatcher Street. Drive down Mulberry Street tomorrow on your way to City Hall and tell me that street shouldn't be replaced.
I don't disagree. But
Thank you, gentlemen. Councilor Delicio, please.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. So again, I just kind of want to, and I'm not on the committee, so feel free to cut me off, but just kind of reel this in a little bit, because I thought that the piece of business was about the survey, not about every broken sidewalk across the city and potholes and everything else. What I think we have is an opportunity to discuss the $28,000 for the survey. And then maybe this is an opportunity where the council and the administration can work together on maybe coming up with that ever mythical sidewalk plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for attending. We appreciate you hanging on a little bit longer with us, longer than you thought this evening.
Cool. Well, thank you all, and I hope you support this project. Contact me if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns. Look forward to talking to you all again in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Good night.
Bye.
With that, From the docket of May 18th, 2021, I entertained a motion to transfer a total of $14,293.84 into account 1601000-580, 589046, Recreation Osley Field renovation from the accounts as follows. $5,360 from account 163010000-511000 salary and wages. $566.34 from account 163010000-512010 salary program assistance. $1,300 from account 163010000-512020 salary seasonal. $3,200 from account 163010000-513000 overtime. $367.50 from 163010000-519130 licenses, and $3,500 from account 163010000-524024 repair of irrigation.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Dolan. So, first question to anybody on the council: where's Ousley Field? Who can answer that?
You got it up South Main Street?
Whereabouts on South Main Street?
This is where Sagra plays? Heading into Seekonk?
You win the golden egg.
Boom!
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly where it is, across from Finberg School, where they used to play softball there quite often. And as you know, their diamond is too close to the tracks there. So of course, in Dennis Walsh, he had come up with this brilliant idea, because parents have been looking for more fields for their kids to do more practices and things. And softball hasn't been playing there very often. So he decided, let's redo it. And he went through all his accounts to find every single penny he could possibly find. And along with the leagues helping, he's going to redo this field. Cool, huh? Yeah, because we are known to have the best fields around, like within the Sun Chronicle area and beyond, because we do have like beautiful fields. So I give him so much credit all the time, Dennis Walsh. Yes. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I would ask for an adjournment at, let's see, 8:22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Dolan. We are adjourned at 8:22.
Budget and appropriations is canceled tonight.
Public safety emergency management is canceled tonight.
Capital improvements and city development is canceled tonight.
Traffic and transportation is canceled tonight.
I would like to call the personnel veterans.
Excuse me.
Actually, yep, Diana's next.
Thank you. I'd like to call Ordinance Election and Legislative Matters Committee to order at 8:23. Committee members, myself, Councilor DeSimone, and Vice President Jackson. I have 3 motions this evening. From the docket of September 22nd, 2020, I entertain a motion to insert the following as a proposed change to Chapter 7, Health Department of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro, Section 7-12, Styrofoam Food Container Waste Reduction.
Second.
Thank you. There's 2 of the environmental ordinances that I'd like to get out of committee tonight, so that way we can discuss in front of the full council. So that would be this one and the plastic food container waste. The other ones, we don't seem to have motions for it, but I will be preparing those and hoping to get those out of committee as well. I would like to discuss the effective date, because the effective date was January 1st, 2021. So I didn't know if somebody in my committee or I could create an amendment to change that date, because it's clearly passed. I don't know if my committee has any comments or suggestions for a start date.
Well, I'd say, I would say maybe 6 months. I mean, there's been certainly notice about it. It's been around for a while when it initially came out in September. I would think months can suffice, and as much as it's been, people have been aware of it for some time.
Okay, so that would be, you're thinking, May,
So
July, August, like around.
November.
Vice President Jackson?
Thank you, Council Holmes. I would suggest January of 2022, starting a whole new year. You know, November is, in January, there's just a short period of time, but I would just think a new year, since we're going to do January anyways. That's just my suggestion.
Well, I'll second that. Any comments?
No.
So this would be January 2022.
Mhm.
I think that, Councilor DeSimone, though, I do want to say, I agree with you. I think restaurants have been preparing. I feel like some have already made some changes related to this. So maybe the ones that are behind, this would give them a little bit of time. I'm comfortable with that.
yeah, I'm not going to argue about a couple of months. That's fine. I'm fine with January.
Okay, and then if it gets to full council and anybody has further amendments, they can certainly bring them up. But I think to get it out of committee, January 1st, 2022. President Cooper?
So I think if there are big amendments, if people are feeling like big things need to be changed, you can always do it at the council level, but that's really not the place for structural changes, in my opinion, to what this looks like. We're having the discussion now. If there's things that people want to councilors want to do now, and you know it, bring it up. If you don't, and you think about it on your drive in to the council meeting, then fine. But I don't really want to have a 17 amendment kind of night. If there's things that individuals want to do and you know it now, now, in my opinion, would be the time to make any amendments. It just gets very messy when you're doing this before the full council.
Mhm.
Okay, Council Blair?
And I'd like to suggest that any of these that pass. I know that sounds like a long time, and the argument will be the restaurants and the people involved and whatnot, they've been aware of this. But truly over the last year, the only thing they've been really aware of is trying to make ends meet and stay in business. I don't think it's been at the forefront of their concerns. So my opinion, a year would be nice. I'd go along with that. I mean, I'm glad that even the January, it at least gives them some notice. But I think no matter what you pass in an environmental, or try to pass in an environmental ordinance, should be at least a year to get everybody to get their ducks in order. Thanks, Diana.
Okay. So we can vote on the date change and then vote on everything as amended.
That's, I can't make an amendment tonight, Diana. That's up to your committee, right? So.
Correct. Okay. So committee members, all those in favor of the date change?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I will ask for, are there any other amendments that anyone is suggesting? President Cooper?
So just so I'm clear, this is on the styrofoam food container waste reduction, correct?
Yes, 7-12.1 through 7-12.6.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilor Dolan?
Hi, sorry, you guys cut out, you just voted on the date change. What was it for? January 2022?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So if there's no other amendments, I will vote to take it out of committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
From the docket of September 22nd, 2020, I entertain a motion to insert the following as a proposed change for Chapter 7, Health Department of the Revised Ordinance of City of Attleboro, Section 7-13, Plastic Food Container Waste Reduction.
Second.
Thank you. I will call for an amendment to change the date. Do we want to make this similar to the past one, which would be January 1st, 2022? I will make an amendment for that if I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? President Cooper?
So I just want to make sure that I so this, you're just voting on the amendment, right? At this
Yes.
point? Okay, fine. I'll wait until the date is amended.
Okay. All those in favor of the date change? Aye.
Aye.
And now the whole motion, are there any other points of discussion? President Cooper?
So I'm wondering what we carry at home in. If we don't allow styrofoam and we don't allow plastic, what are we carrying at home in? Anybody?
Councilor DeSimone?
Yeah, I believe Catherine Ferrick talked about this, and I've experienced it myself. There are biodegradable, like these cardboard type containers that some restaurants are using now.
Okay, so I don't, so if we're talking about getting rid of these, this is what the Coopers eat out of a couple of times a week. So
This is what I got from Bliss at a recent takeout. It's a biodegradable container. Earth Choice. So I do think Catherine Ferrick mentioned these in her comments a while ago, and the expense involved was nominal, as I recall. And I also believe she indicated that local restaurants and others are making this change, or at least anticipating it. So.
I
so
know. Go ahead, President Cooper.
So so from my own perspective, I'm okay with the styrofoam, but at this point, I won't support this this plastic food waste container before the full council. I won't limit them at this point in time. Let's get through the styrofoam, the impact of that. Not many are using it. We've been doing, the Coopers have been doing, like a lot of you have been doing, the SWAT thing, right? That with Jeff, and following that on Facebook and using those restaurants. We all know which ones use which containers. I just think and some of those places were borrowing from one another, right? The one sticks out in my mind, had to borrow from another one, and they were those small cardboard, almost like typically Chinese food is served in type of container that doesn't have the metal piece holding it together. So I'm concerned that a January date for both of these things to happen means that everybody in town that serves takeout has to use a container the same or similar to what Councilor DeSimone just showed, because we banned everything else. And I can't get behind that right now. And that concludes my comments. Thank you,
Makes sense.
Vice President Jackson.
Thank you. Councilor Blair?
Okay, I'm in agreement with Mr. Cooper. Those cardboard containers, if you want hot food by the time you get home, you don't have it. You know, for some reason, no styrofoam not only holds cold, but it holds heat. So I can't get behind it at all. And if you do something, it should be a year, not 6 months or whatever. Thank you.
Councilor Delissio? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd have to throw my support behind President Cooper and President Blair on this one. I think the other thing that we're starting to see, though, and I think this is the right way to go about it, you never want to swing that pendulum too far to one side. And I think, to Councilor DeSimone's point, like Bliss, I know Morin's, some of the other local restaurants are already starting to take it on their own to be able to make some of these changes. And I think that that's probably a good way to go. The other thing I'm concerned about, using President Cooper's question about how we taking it home, how are we going to be getting coffee to go? A lot of us are on the go if there's not plastic cups for iced coffee and other things. I just think it's too much too soon. The styrofoam to me makes sense as the chair of the 10-mile river cleanup. I see so much, and President Cooper, you've been in there, so much styrofoam, especially, in certain pots. So, I think we're making positive progress, but I think too much at one time can be dangerous.
Any other comments? Council Dolan?
I will support this when it comes to the full council, and I get what you're saying, Council Delicio, about the river cleanup, although I don't do the river cleanup, but I do, keep Attleboro beautiful. And the amount of plastic is pretty insane that we find on the streets as well. So I will support this when it comes to the full council. Thank you.
So I will call for a vote if the discussion is over. All those in favor of getting this out of committee at least? Aye.
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 Thank you. One last motion. From the docket of March 17, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the following amendments to section 10-4 of the revised ordinance of the city of Attleboro, delete in its entirety and replace with the following: permanent speed humps and cushions.
Second.
Thank you. Just want, no. Are there anybody that would like to make any amendments? Councilor DeSimone?
Thank you, Councilor Holmes. I continue to have concerns about the process involved with this. I think it's important. I support it overall. But I had wanted to, I think it would be wise to formalize the process, and I'm referring particularly to subsection C, placement, where the mayor sent it down with some parenthetical or bracketed information that I think might be wise to actually put in the ordinance so people know the process, that it's public.
Okay.
And I have a paragraph ready, but I don't know if I had sent it to you before or not, or if you want me to send it before the full council, how you want to handle. But all I'm trying to do is formalize that, take what's in brackets and make it part of the ordinance.
I think I do have it. This time I did print it. So it's A that you're basically replacing, and do you want to read the paragraph?
Sure. As amended?
Please.
Okay. So I would propose that in regard to section A, the language perhaps state as follows. The municipal council shall consider said recommendation, a recommendation by the mayor, only in conjunction with the report from the mayor demonstrating that he or she has, 1, consulted with the police chief, fire chief, DPW superintendent, and a reasonable representation of residents and or property owners of the streets in question, and 2, reviewed data obtained from the placement of temporary speed humps used to measure their impact on traffic speed and volume at the location in question.
Second. This does seem to make sense to me, because what was brought down from the administration is left a little vague in the brackets. So this is just kind of formalizing that process. I would support this. Any other comments? President Cooper and then Council.
Yes. Thank you, Council Holmes. So I'm in full support of the amendment made by Councilor DeSimone. We've gone back and forth several times with this ordinance. The mayor is hopeful that something happens in the affirmative with this motion as he considers traffic calming measures on the project we spoke earlier about on May Street. And there were temporary speed humps put there, as you all know. So thank you, Councilor DeSimone. I'm in full support of the changes. I think it just, to your point, it just codifies the how we get this done and what the council expects as information to be shared at the time of the request. The other thing that you know what, I gotta just look quickly. There is no, which is okay, there is no requirement in this for a public hearing, right? Is that a true statement? There's no requirement for a public hearing?
That's correct.
That's what I thought. And I'm okay with that. And I'll tell you why I'm okay with it. And I think we can all be okay with it. Any one of us can ask for a public hearing at any time on any matter if we feel it's warranted. So I would argue that in the case of a speed humps, while I'm council president, if I were to get this request, I would likely refer it to Transportation and Traffic, to the committee, and then to Traffic Study Commission. And I would hope that the Transportation and Traffic would call for a public hearing on the matter to hear from the residents most affected, right? It just makes sense. So I'm not worried about the fact that it doesn't specifically call out a public hearing. And I'm in full support, and I hope to move it forward. And I shared with all of you my experience in Maine with speed humps, and I wasn't a fan till the guy on the street, when I zigged when I should have zagged and went down the wrong way and had to go over the speed bumps with my trailer, and it slowed me right down because I was late and to get something. And I talked to him at quite a length about it. He gave me some great feedback on why it's important to have these measures, and I'm in full support, and thank you.
Councilor Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, Council Holmes. So the one thing that I have noticed that's not in this is what department is actually responsible for putting the speed humps in and taking care of them. Because whatever department it is, because we're not used to putting them in all the time, they're going to have to be educated on how to properly place them and how to care for them and have the tools to put them in. So I just wondered, do we know who's responsible for that? Which department this is going to go on? Because I don't remember hearing that. Maybe I missed it, or maybe I just have forgotten it.
To be honest with you, I do feel like, I think that that's a good question to get clarified, because I think that between police and DPW, there was a little bit of, President Cooper, do you have any?
Yeah, the installation and maintenance is DPW. It's in the road. The placement is collaborative between the group. That was my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, we would be deleting where it says no, that whole section, and we'd be replacing it with the amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're voting on that. Any other comments on just this amendment right now? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Amendment passed. Any other amendments for consideration? Okay. Any other comments? So we will be then voting it out of committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. I will, I just want to thank my committee for just having a lot of patience with me this season. We have a lot more obviously coming up with some public hearings, but I know it's been a while since I've been able to get everything kind of organized here, but I think that I'm finally in a good path with everything. And I did want to let everyone know I'm collecting for the zoning ordinance change, the change from last week, the public hearing. I'm collecting all the documents like I've done in the past, and I'm putting them in a folder in Virginia's office. So if anybody wants to kind of look at all the communications together, they'll be in one place. Remember how I've done it before with like hunting, and like I'll have like a folder that will be prepared. So if anybody wants to go in there and just kind of look through and count how many people have done for and against, it'll be available to everybody. So I will call for an adjournment. Oh, President Cooper.
Before you do, on the wetlands ordinance matter, in terms of scheduling, we're coming up into the summer, and I just want to be mindful of Gary or Nick's schedule for them to come to your committee. And I also want to schedule a time, and I'm happy for us to post the meeting. I want to look at the 43 I don't need to look at all of them, but I want to look at some of the 43 that were granted waivers, because I need to understand the impact. So if I could, once the hearing's closed, we can set up a meeting to look at those 43 applications that were approved that were within the 25-foot, that would be helpful for me.
Perfect. Are you thinking like a 6:30, like an earlier meeting on a Tuesday or something? Okay.
Yeah, on a regular committee meeting, once the public hearing's closed, I'm just sort of throwing out there as we start to come into the summer schedule, things get a little bit backed up with between the budget and this. I just don't want things to be in conflict with people's time.
Perfect. Perfect. Any other comments? Oh, Council Conti?
So I tried to raise my hand for the
Oh,
first time.
I think I saw that emoji. I think
Council Holmes, I together with Councilor Cooper, when the public hearing is closed and we get to discuss this in the committee, I would like to know, I mean, Bill Larson at one public hearing mentioned a number of the amount of square feet of land taking affected by this ordinance. I would like something harder from the planning department on exactly the number of square feet that would be taken in across the city, or not taken, affected by the ordinance at 75 feet across the city. And a map would be very, very helpful. So I've just given that to you in advance so that you can plan. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I will look to definitely invite them then to a committee meeting. So I will move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:46. Thank you.
I would like to call the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee together at 8:46. We have one guest this evening to kind of help us look at the motion that we're going to be handling. Is Ashley Stewart still watching with us?
No, Ty, she dropped off about 5-6 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, let me read the motion to begin with, and then I'll speak to it a little. From the docket of May 18th, 2021, I entertain a motion to amend Article 4, Section 1 of the Personnel Rules and Regulations for exempt and unrepresented employees of the city of Attleboro by adding Juneteenth as a listed legal holiday. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. This is coming to us because it is now a state holiday. I believe it was, I think last July, that it was passed by the legislature and approved also by our governor. And so it's coming through us through the personnel office. And I would like to just read a section of what our personnel director, Owen Bobo, wrote to us. Actually wrote to Mayor Hero on April 21st. He said, I'm as requested, I'm forwarding to you a proposed addition to the exempt rules and regulations for your submission to the municipal council. And it's the recommended addition is within Article 4, which is holidays. And I've consulted with City Solicitor Cindy Amara, and she has concluded the following: that Massachusetts added Juneteenth Independence Day as a legal holiday through Chapter 124 of the Acts of 2020. And so now it is a general law, and cities and towns are required to follow general laws. This is being, adding this as a paid holiday is happening right now within the within our unions, with the mayor and the unions. It's happening there. But 65 employees are exempt. And those would be people who are directors, assistant directors of departments and so forth. And the purpose of this motion is to allow them not just to have the holiday, but to have it as a paid holiday, as our union members will also have. So there are questions. Councilor Blair. I believe you're muted. Thanks.
You're right. So as of this year, all our personnel, other than the exempt employees, are going to have this day off as a paid holiday? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I learned that just recently from Owen Bebo. Yes.
And the exempt employees, the people who work at City Hall and whatnot, they wouldn't get it. Am I correct?
You're correct. And it also would be department heads throughout the city and assistant department heads.
So,
okay. There's a list of 65 because I have that list, but yeah.
All right. Stick it in my box, would you please?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
What I anticipated was that some of the members of the council, and reason Ashley Stewart, who is recently moved to Rhode Island, she dropped off just before we started the committee meeting, but she actually organized the first Juneteenth celebration in Attleboro last summer and is planning to organize the second one again on June 19th. And which is a Saturday this year. And so that would make the holiday be a Friday. Okay. But Juneteenth is a date that was the day that the African-American slaves in Beaumont, Texas in 1865 were notified that they were free by a Northern general when our army went into Texas, which was around that time period. They didn't know they were free till that time. So it is a holiday to celebrate their emancipation. And there may be other questions. Are there any other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The vote passes 3-0. And with that, I move to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. And that concludes the business of the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee. Call for the next committee meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Call the Zoning and Land Use Committee to order. I think I'm next. Councilor Delicio, do you mind grabbing a couple notes?
No problem at all.
Outstanding. All right, just 2 items of business tonight. From the docket of March 16th, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve the layout of Grace Lane as a public way, length of 615.82 feet from STA 0 to STA 6 plus 15.82, and accept said way and any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements, all as shown on a plan and profile entitled Street Acceptance Plan of Grace Lane in Attleboro, Massachusetts, dated February 8th, 2017, prepared by Christopher D. Yarworth, PLS, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Second.
Motion's in order. I spoke to Gary Erasian earlier today about this. He doesn't have any objections. We had the public hearing. We continued it to have people come in. Nobody came in and spoke to speak against it. Nobody spoke in favor of it either. But talking to Gary Erasian, he's in full support of this. So I encourage people to support it. Any questions? President Cooper.
You're on Grace Lane, right?
Yes, Grace Lane.
Yep. So Bob Perry came to speak in favor of it, right? He was one of the developers of that. There were two of them. And
I stand corrected.
I just wanted to make sure that was reflected because he did come speak in favor. And we all miss the Hearts, right? This was Grace Hart's land.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion pass. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Next one, from the docket of March 16th, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve the layout of a portion of Simpson Avenue as a public way, length of 165.71 feet from STA 0 to STA 1 plus 65.71, and accept said way and any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements, all as shown on a plan and profile entitled Street Acceptance Plan for Land in Attleboro, Massachusetts, dated September 19th, 2019, and revised through December 28th, 2020, prepared by Daniel R. Campbell, PE, and James W. Neva, PLS, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Second.
And again, with this one, I spoke to Gary Arasion. No objections to moving forward with this one, and I encourage people to support it. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. That concludes the business. Move to adjourn.
I was going to say, Councilor Kovas, can I just say one thing? I think that there's
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. There's just something for us to sign in the council room too. I don't know if everybody's made it their way in there.
Oh, right. The Rathfer Willard. Yep. Please, if you haven't signed it, please go ahead and sign that. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 8:57.
License committee is canceled this evening. Thank you.
So I would like to call to order the City Property and Claims Committee at 8:57. I have two items. On the docket of May 18th, 2021, I entertain a motion to declare surplus and available for disposition the following police equipment. I have 3 Glock 22 Gen 4. The model number is .40 cal, and the serial numbers are XCG881, XCG882, and XCG883.
Second.
Thank you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They're no longer used. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That motion passes. From the docket of May 18th, 2021, I entertain a motion to declare surplus and available for disposition the following water department equipment: a Toshiba eStudio 306 copier. The model number is EP-3020, ID number 7592, serial number C2EC37592, and the condition is poor.
Second.
Thank you. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Almost every copier in the city has been replaced. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes, and that is all the business the City Property and Claims Committee has tonight. So I'm going to ask for an adjournment at 8:58.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:58. If aye.
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 Okay, we are adjourned. 8:58.
I'd like to call the Special Committee on Council Rules and Procedures to order at 8:58. Sitting on this committee are Councilor Vice Chair Dolan and Member Councilor Simone. I have one measure to bring before you this evening from the docket of April 28th, 2020. I entertain a motion to approve the revised Attleboro Municipal Council Rules and Procedure 2021 edition.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Is there any discussion? Councilor Cooper.
What's the effective date?
The effective date has not been, it's when the council passes the vote.
Okay, so I I'd like to make an amendment, but before I do that, I want to make sure I have to dig in my filing cabinet for a minute, or you can just answer my question, Richard. At one of the meetings that we had, there was discussion about the duties of the individual committees, right? So the ordinance committee would do X, Y, Z, personnel, veterans, and human services would do X, Y, Z. Was that, and there was some talk of eliminating that from the rules. Is that still in the rules, or did you remove that?
It is still in the rules.
Thank you. Did we change the name in the rules of the personnel, veterans, and human services committee?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. And last, I'd like to make an amendment for the effective date, just to give my brain some time to read this a couple of times, read it again a couple more times, I should probably say, just looking at the calendar, I'm sorry. So to June 15th. I'm not on your committee. If we don't do it, if someone on your committee doesn't do that tonight, I'll do it before the full council. I'll have to surrender the floor to Council Vice President Jackson to do that. But it just gives me some time to review the rules with Virginia and Steve. Because remember, Steve is the ultimate decision maker on these rules and has to make sure, and we have to make sure that he understands them as well. Any changes to our processes as a result of the rules. I don't think they're huge, but I just want to make sure that we give them time.
So you still have the floor. Is there anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Councilor Dolan.
I have no problem with that at all. If people need an opportunity to, read it again, I have no issue with that if you as the chair don't.
So I'll take that in the form of a motion that you entertain a motion to amend the motion to become effective June 15th, 2021.
Correct.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Councilor DeSimone, thank you. We're voting on the amendment to make it effective June 15th, 2021. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now back to the original motion. I entertain a motion to approve the revised Attleboro Municipal Council rules and procedures effective 2021. The motion is in order. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Councilor Cooper.
Fix that one.
Thank you. You knew it was coming, Richard. You knew it was coming. So I just want to thank the committee and then for all the work that was done. I know we went, back and forth through two different counselors and added some. I had to change up the committee members. So this takes time, and then reviewed by the solicitor a couple of different times for different things that came up. So I appreciate everyone's work on this, and I look forward to the motion in the coming weeks to dissolve this committee.
Well, Councilor Cooper, thank you, but I'll tell you, I never want to do this again.
Wait, I want all, I have another comment if I may.
You have the floor, Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. To all counselors, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
please take
my
heed
comment.
of those very wise words. So is there any other comments on the motion? Very well. We'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Copies of the 2021 edition will be circulated electronically as PDF files to the full council, as it will come up for a full vote on May 25th. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's in order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I declare the Special Rules Committee adjourn at 9:04. Thank you for your attention.
The Special
Okay.
Committee for Tax Abatement is canceled.
And that does it for the evening.
Thank you all.
See you later.
Have a great week.
You too.
Aye.